Okay, let's unpack this. Picture two people in Indonesia, Lestari and Hadi. They're, clearly not seeing eye to eye on something they're working on. Let's just listen in for a second. Brief pause. Okay, so for those of us whose Indonesian is maybe still a work in progress, here's what they said. Lestari goes, "Kita tidak bisa menerbitkan ini." We can't publish this.
Right.
Then Hadi comes back with, "Saya tidak setuju. Ini sangat penting." I disagree. It's very important.
Okay.
Lestari replies, "Tapi ini bukan berita baru, but it's not new news." And Hadi finishes, "Ini adalah sebuah artikel opini," which is, it's an opinion article.
Right there. That's the crux of it.
Exactly. So what's really at the heart of this disagreement, that little snippet, believe it or not, is our way into today's deep dive.
Yeah.
Our mission really is to understand that friction between Lestari and Hadi and, see what it tells us about communication in Indonesia.
Specifically, agreement and disagreement.
Right, and how different kinds of publications maybe fit into that whole picture.
And what's kind of fascinating, I think, is how this whole thing comes from a basic Indonesian language course.
Yeah, the lesson notes.
It just shows, even simple language points can open up these really interesting cultural insights. It's not just grammar. It's about how people actually interact.
Totally. So let's get straight to their core issue. Lestari doesn't want to publish because, like she said, it's not new news.
Right. The novelty factor.
But Hadi's pushing back. He says it's important, and he makes that key distinction. It's an opinion article.
So right away, you see they're working with different criteria.
Yeah.
Different ideas about what makes something, publishable.
Yeah. What values might be different for news versus opinion? Like, for news, you'd think freshness is key.
Right. Timeliness.
Whereas an opinion piece, maybe its value is in the perspective or the argument it makes, even if the topic isn't brand new.
That really brings up a basic question, doesn't it? How do we value different kinds of information? And how long does that value last? Lestari's comment, not new news, it sort of suggests a real emphasis on, newness. For certain content, anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
But Hadi, by calling it opini, that's the Indonesian for opinion, you mentioned Lestari used berita for news.
Right, berita, opini. Got it.
He basically shifts the goalposts. Suddenly, it's not about being first. It's about the viewpoint being offered.
Okay. And their little exchange, it also gives us a peek into how agreement and disagreement sound in Indonesian. Hadi's very direct, isn't he? Saya tidak setuju.
I disagree. Yep. Clear cut.
Now, our source material, those lesson notes, they give us more options. Like, if Hadi agreed, he could have just said, "Saya setuju."
The opposite. I agree.
But there are other ways too, right? Like, "Saya mendukung." I'm in favor. Or maybe, "Saya punya pendapat yang sama."
Which means?
I have the same opinion. So, different shades of agreement.
Interesting. A whole range there.
And on the flip side, for disagreeing, besides Hadi's direct, "Saya tidak setuju," you could say, "Saya penting."
I'm against. A bit stronger, maybe. Or perhaps more diplomatic, pendapat saya berbeda.
My opinion is different. I like that one.
Yeah. See, they're not just dictionary translations. They carry different sort of weights, different levels of directness.
Definitely feels that way. Okay, let's zoom in on some specific words they used. Lestari started with, "Kita tidak bisa menerbitkan ini." We can't publish this.
Right. Tidak bisa.
And the notes break that down pretty simply. Tidak is no, or not.
Mm-hmm.
And bisa is can or be able to.
Put them together. Cannot. Not able to.
Yeah, it seems like the basic way to say you can't do something. The example was, saya tidak bisa bermain piano.
They can't play the piano. Simple structure, but yeah, fundamental.
Okay, and then the verb listari used menerbitkan to publish.
Ah, yes, menerbitkan. Now, this word is interesting, the way it's built.
How so?
Well, you've got the prefix me, then the root is turbit, which means to publish, but also like to rise, like the sun rising.
Huh, okay. Rise and publish.
And then the suffix can, which often indicates causation, making something happen. So making it rise, making it published.
Interesting etymology.
But here's the really key cultural bit from the notes. Merbitkan is specifically for print media.
Oh, really? Only print?
That's what it says. Books, newspapers, magazines, and crucially, not for online articles.
Wow, okay. That's a huge distinction. So if they were arguing about a blog post or something, they probably wouldn't use menerbitkan.
Seems unlikely, based on this. The example sentence they give reinforces it. Dia telah menerbitkan novel keduanya bulan lalu.
Which is?
He has published his second novel last month. See? A novel. Print.
That really makes you think, doesn't it? Does that linguistic split maybe reflect, I don't know, a different status? Or maybe more formality for printed stuff in Indonesia?
It could well do. It points towards something like that anyway. And then, let's look at Hadi's disagreement again.
Tidak, setuju.
Right, not agree.
We have tidak again, no. And setuju, to agree. But the source notes dig into setuju itself.
Oh, yeah. What's the story there? It comes from se, which means one. It's related to satu, the word for one.
Okay, se means one.
And root tuju, which means to head to or heading.
Heading to one.
Sort of. Literally, it's like having one destination or deciding towards a single point. It paints a picture of alignment,
Ah, I see. People heading in the same direction. Makes sense for agreement.
Exactly. And the lesson note wisely warns you. Don't mix up tuju with tuju.
Tuju, which is
7.
Yeah.
Completely different. Easy mistake to make, I guess.
Okay, good tip. And the example for tidak setuju?
Mereka tidak setuju dengan rencana saya. Meaning they disagreed with my plan. Shows how you use it.
Right. Okay, so we've looked at the language pieces, but the cultural context our source gives us, that really adds another layer to Lestari and Hadi's argument.
Yeah, it talks about newspapers, how important they are in Indonesia, right alongside TV.
It calls them a bridge between the community and the outside world. That's quite a statement.
Delivering news, sure, but also things like job ads, other advertisements. Sounds like they're woven into daily life.
Yeah. So if newspapers are that central, then the act of publishing in one or not publishing, that probably carries real weight, doesn't it?
You'd think so. And connecting that back. If newspapers are so established, maybe there's a stronger cultural expectation about timeliness.
Mm-hmm.
So especially for print, unlike the web where things are instant and always changing, print has deadlines, distribution. Maybe old news feels, older and less valuable in that specific context.
That makes sense. And the source actually lists some big names. National papers from Jakarta, like Kumpas.
Yeah, Compass, Suara Pembaruan, Republika. Even the English one, the Jakarta Post.
And Postcoda, which is specifically for crime news, apparently.
So even at the national level, there's variety. Different focuses, different readerships.
And it's not just national papers. It mentions important local ones, too.
Right, like Kedaulatan Rakyat in Yogyakarta, and Waspada in Medan, Bali Post in Bali. Strong regional voices.
Shows the importance of local perspectives, covering things relevant to specific communities.
Definitely.
Then there's this other thing, the Tribune brand. It sounds like a network of local papers.
Yeah, Tribun Pontianak, Tribun Jabar, Tribun Jambi. The notes say they're all over the country.
And they're apparently shaking things up, impacting the market share of older local papers.
That's what it suggests. So the media scene isn't static, it's evolving, there's competition, even within local news.
Okay. And one more type, tabloids.
Right, the smaller ones like Sekar Sik and Nova focus more on celebrities, sports, that kind of thing.
So a whole spectrum, serious broadsheets, local papers, crime focus, tabloids.
Exactly. Which brings us back to Lestari and Hadi.
Yeah.
In a country with this kind of, rich and varied newspaper culture.
News versus opinion, national versus local, broadsheet versus tabloid.
The reasons for publishing something, the criteria,
Yeah.
they'd likely be pretty important and probably different depending on where you hope to publish it.
So Lestari's worry about not new news. That probably comes from a deep understanding of what's valued, especially in maybe the more traditional news sections or papers.
Could be. Timeliness might be paramount there, while Hadi's opinion angle might fit better elsewhere or be judged differently.
So this raises some questions for you listening in. Based on this little window into Indonesian communication and media, what might be some of the unspoken rules? The expectations around publishing different stuff.
Yeah, why is not new news such a strong objection for Lestari, even if Hadi thinks the opinion itself is important?
And what does this diverse newspaper scene, national, local, tabloid tell us about the space for different views and the need for different kinds of platforms?
Lots to chew on there.
It really is. So just to quickly recap our deep dive here, we started with that simple Indonesian disagreement.
We can't publish this. I disagree.
Not new news. It's an opinion.
Yeah.
And we've kind of unpacked it to see, some nuances in expressing agreement and disagreement.
The vocabulary.
The specific meaning of words like menerbitkan, how it's tied just to print media, that was fascinating.
Yeah, that was a key detail.
And we got this sense of the really significant role newspapers play in Indonesia with all their different formats and focuses.
And ultimately, Lestari and Hadi's little exchange, it just gives us this glimpse into a culture that seems to value both timely news and the expression of opinion.
Right, but maybe with different rules or expectations applying to each.
Seems that way.
So here's a final thought we want to leave you with. Thinking about that variety of news sources in Indonesia and that clear line drawn between news and opinion. How might someone there navigate all that information? How would they assess what's coming from different places?
And maybe turn that lens on yourself. How does that relate to how you consume information? What assumptions do you make, maybe without even realizing it, about the value or the shelf life of different kinds of published content we see every day?
Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe.